Hello and welcome to the Pop Council Podcast, the show where we cover everything in pop culture. Each week on this show, we will discuss topics in the geek world, as well as various fandoms such as Disney, Marvel, DC, Star Wars, theme parks, and everything in between. I'm Jami, Philbrick, entertainment journalist and critic for We Live Entertainment and board member of the Hollywood Critics Association. Today, we have a great show for you, and we will be discussing such topics as the new Venom, There Be Carnage trailer, which just dropped this morning. Andrew Garfield, is he in Spider-Man No Way Home or not? Ta-Nehisi Coates, J.J. Abrams' Superman details, director's list, and more. Loki moving to Wednesdays, reviews of Star Wars, Bad Batch, and if there's time, Jupiter's Legacy. As always, I am joined by my co-host, Wendy Lee Szany. Hey, Wendy.
Hello, Jamie. How are you today? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. How are you? How was your weekend?
It's so good. It was filled with a lot of things. There's a lot of things happening, but it was Mother's Day, so we got to spend some time with my husband's family, which was always fantastic.
Awesome. It's so great that everyone can I saw so many pictures of like people with their mothers on Mother's Day and people getting together. And it's really nice to see that this year. We have a great guest to join us today. He's a HCA member, also writes for Empire Online, which of course is Empire Magazine's website. Please welcome James White. Where are you, James?
Hi.
Yay!
Hi, Jamie. Hi, Wendy.
Hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
Hi, good. How are you, James?
I am good. It's good to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Why don't you tell everyone who's watching a little bit about yourself?
So I am a British journalist, if you couldn't guess from the accent. Been based in LA for 16 years now. I work mostly for Empire Magazine, but you can also find me in a few other places like SFX Magazine from the UK and one or two other things. I also have my own blog, which is J Writes, which you can find at Substack, which I review sort of stuff coming out at weekends and also the occasional sort of pop culture pick that I want to talk about, like I did the Snyder Cut recently, that kind of stuff. I'm a huge movie nerd. I'm a TV junkie, and I'm a big nerd in general, frankly. So yeah.
Then you're gonna fit in perfectly right here with us. You're the perfect guest to have. Awesome. So great to have you, James. So let's jump right into it. This morning, as always here on Pop Council Podcast, we wait for Monday morning. Something's going to drop that we want to cover right away for you. And today is no exception. We had the trailer and poster drop for Venom, There Will Be Carnage. Am I saying that title right? Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I keep saying There Will Be Carnage. I think there will be. I think I have Paul Thomas Anderson's There Will Be Blood in my mind. There Will Be Carnage, of course, introducing Woody Harrelson as Carnage, the enemy of Venom, and we got to see Tom Hardy back as the main character. So let's just go straight to our guest, James White. James, what was your sort of first reaction from seeing this trailer today?
It is an odd one, I have to admit. I was fascinated when I learned that Andy Serkis would be directing it. It looks in keeping with Venom that we expect. You know, it's Tom Hardy with a symbiote and things being weird. I was trying to figure out if he was going more French Canadian with Venom's voice this time, because it just sounds like when he's cooking, it's like, oh, here we go, oh, enjoy. But it's definitely mad. I think they seem to be pitching it as horror comedy. They've really kind of kept the comedy level there, and they're keeping that going. I was mixed on it. I don't know if I'm 100% sold yet, but there were certainly moments in the trailer that did actually make me chuckle. The Mrs. Chen stuff sort of made me chuckle once or twice when he's interacting with the convenience store lady from the last film. Right. Woody Harrelson, and obviously introduced in the little post-credit sting of the first Venom. Interested to see what he does with it. Looks like he's just going to have a lot of mad fun with it. I know Naomi Harris is going to be in it to shriek. I think you only see her for one little tiny shot. It's just she's sort of asleep in prison, or she actually wakes up in prison. Apart from that, I'm intrigued, but I think I have to admit I'm a little bit worried to begin with. I don't know how it's going to work as a whole film, but we'll see. The first Venom, didn't love it completely, but it made a lot of money, so of course we're getting this one.
Yeah, I'm with you on the first Venom. I liked it. I didn't love it. I've seen it like on TV a couple of times. I think they run it on FX or something a lot that I keep kind of strolling over it. And, there are moments that I like. I think it maybe serves better at home than, as a big theater spectacle. But Woody Harrelson, I'm interested in seeing his performance directed by Andy Serkis, because I thought his performance as it was directed by Ruben Fleischer in the first one, in that end credit scene, I thought was just way over the top. So I'm interested to see if Andy Serkis kind of reins him in a little bit. I think part of the fun of Tom Hardy's performance is he is over the top. So we want that kind of full and crazy. And and Andy Serkis is an interesting choice to direct this. I think in some ways, I don't think he's directed as many movies as Ruben Fleischer, but I think he's probably a better director. I'm sort of open to hoping that it turns out good, but for me, there's sort of a low or maybe medium bar with the first Venom, so I'm hoping that it can kind of surpass that. But Wendy, what were your thoughts?
I've been very interested and very intrigued by the fact that they're going to give us Carnage for a really long time. The second we saw, and it was revealed with the, what is it, like a mid-credit, post-credit scene with Woody Harrelson,
Right.
When it was revealed that he is playing Cletus Cassidy, I was like, oh, they're going to go there and they're going to do Carnage. Now, my thing is watching this trailer, I had a lot of fun with it, kind of like what James said, all the moments with Mrs. Chen, that was hilarious. The making breakfast can be a little cheeky, can be a little, quote unquote over the top comedy, but I kind of love that because it's in theme with the previous film, and it kind of shows how Eddie is, still, I guess, trying to get used to living with the symbiote. I don't know how to say it anymore because Jenny Slate said it one way.
Right,
she says symbiote, and I've always said a symbiote. But symbiote. Anyway,
I go with symbiote. Let's go with symbiote.
Symbiote. Let's go with that. I'm sure I'll say it 4 different times during this segment. But I hope that they, with this film, with Andy Serkis directing, that they'll let Carnage be Carnage. I don't want them to soften it too much because it's in the name Carnage, right? So we want to see a bit of carnage. I want there to be a bit of nastiness and a little bit of gore, and so we're not sure about the rating on this movie. I believe the previous film was only a PG-13, understandably so. So do they want to keep it in line with the rating, or they want to take the leap of faith and say, let's just go R with it, and will that turn away the audience who saw the first movie and whatnot? But I really like the trailer, actually. I like that they showed some comedy bits and then they mixed that in with, obviously the imagery of Carnage, little bits and pieces of Cletus speaking. I would have loved to see a little bit more of Cletus, but I think they're going to save it for the next trailer. This is the first trailer. They call it the official trailer. I feel like this is more, to me, even though it's a bit long, 2 minutes and 43 seconds. I feel that this still served as a teaser, and the better part is yet to come. So I just can't wait to see the face off. And I love that we're getting more than just one symbiote in this movie. As James had talked about earlier, that we're getting Shriek, and we're getting Carnage, and we're getting Venom. It's gonna, I hope, fingers crossed, that this is gonna surpass my expectation. Because you two, I enjoyed the first movie a lot. I didn't love it, but I was hoping for a Venom for so long that I was like, yes, okay, a lot of it worked for me.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously the best part, I think we could all agree, the best part of the first movie was Tom Hardy as Venom. So we've got that back, right? So, and I loved those scenes in the trailer with him sort of trying, it's almost the odd couple between Eddie Brock and Venom, right? So I thought that was super fun. And, about Carnage, and I think it's great that we're getting several symbiotes in this movie. Is Michelle Williams back? Could we see She-Venom back?
She
was in one shot, right?
One shot,
I thought I saw her. Yeah. So maybe we could even get 4. I wanted to pose this question to both of you. Do you think the first Venom would have been a stronger film if they had just started with Carnage as the villain instead of doing the whole thing with Riot? Oh, you liked the Riot. Wendy.
I feel like there needs to be a build up for Carnage. I think the comic book readers, they know of all the three. And for me, I learned about Venom first, then I learned about Carnage, and Carnage pretty soon became my preferred, like my more favorite out of the symbiotes.
Right.
Sorry, Venom, don't come for me. But I feel like it would have been maybe too much too quick for the audience. I like this interaction of, you know, seeing Eddie Brock and setting that up, him meeting Cletus and then sharing the cell, and like that kind of can explain exactly how then Cletus got the symbiote, you know. So I prefer that, but I do wonder. That's a really interesting question.
Yeah, James, what do you think? Would you think Venom 1 would have been stronger if they had just started with Carnage as the villain?
No, I have to agree with Wendy. I think Riot was probably the right choice to start with. I think you do need to build up to Carnage. I think Carnage needs to be the reward you get for making the first film and then getting onto it. My big concern right now is, given that we've got Shriek and we might have Lady Venom, I'm just worried about the Spider-Man 3 effect. I'm just worried about overloading in all different. If like 6 symbionts coming, it'll be the symbiont team, the symbiont family. Now meet every symbiont. They're all just hanging around in a house. I just worry about overloading the villains or the anti-heroes or everything into one, and you don't really get the time to focus on any of them, and you don't do any of them justice. That's kind of what concerns me about loading up on more places. I think Carnage is great. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think Woody Harrelson can potentially be a lot of fun playing that character with CGI, obviously. But I just worry about overloading it. I don't want them to be suddenly, oh, people like Venom, so let's have this and this and this and this and this, until it's just buried in a pile of symbiotes, basically. Symbiote City. I just want them to focus on it. I want the comedy to come through, the horror stuff to come through, but I just don't want it to be, you know, overloaded and over, you know, weighed down with it.
Symbiote City, isn't that an old David Bowie song? I think, right? I think Symbiote City is a David Bowie song.
I like one of the comments, Matt Scientist says, the symbiote bunch, and we can now just see all the screens and all the symbiote suits doing this.
Yeah. Well, you know, you make a great point, James, because, there is a worry, I think, of overloading. And then obviously we know at some point, you know, the Spider-Man's going to meet with the Venoms, and you've got Morbius out there. You've got all the Sony Spider-Man characters and all the new ones they're bringing back, or old ones they're bringing back. So, yeah, there is a problem with maybe it getting too overloaded. I think that's a good point. And also, I just wanted, before we move on, just Andy Serkis, we kind of mentioned it for a second, but Wendy, what do you sort of think about Andy Serkis directing this sequel? And could you sort of see him in the trailer?
You know, what's interesting with this is I feel that he as a director kind of really did his job, as far as we could see in this trailer, keeping in theme with the first movie. So there's more of like a, you know, rite of passage that he doesn't have to like, I need to throw my style all over this movie and like completely change the tone from the first movie. That's not something I want. It should be subtle if there's going to be changes as they lead on. But what I'm most excited for, so no, to answer your question directly, I don't really see Andy Serkis in this film, but what I hope to see in this one, because he's such a great actor as far as like movement expression, you know, how, you know, he's done all the mocaps.
Right.
I think that he's going to give really great insights and really great direction, and the ability to let the actors play when they're in their symbiotes. And just like, I mean, these two characters, or should I say actors, they already can go big. Like, especially Woody Harrelson, like you don't have to tell him go big. He's going to go big. And it looks like Tom Hardy's having so much fun with this one. But I love to see the direction in this one, and to see if they can dial up the intensity, you know, when it comes to the final fight between Venom and Carnage.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think Andy Serkis, his direction in the trailer is almost, you know, it's not that you see his fingerprints, but you don't see Fleischer's fingerprints, right? So like you see not a completely different movie, but a different sort of tone going forward, which I think a lot of fans will really be happy about. James, what were your thoughts on Andy Serkis taking over the franchise?
Yeah, I'm happy to see him sort of stepping up. He's paid his dues with, you know, he did Mowgli, he did Breathe, and of course did a lot of second unit work on Hobbit stuff, Lord of the Rings, that kind of thing. I think he's probably ready to do this kind of thing. He's a fair nerd himself when it comes to this kind of work. So I did like the style that he brought to the trailer. I felt like it looked like a stylish film, but not showy. It wasn't sort of Andy Serkis. It wasn't kind of a Zack Snyder. I'm going to stamp my style on this. It's going to have to look the way I want it to look. He does roughly keep it in keeping with the way Venom looked, but also there were little stylistic flourishes. I liked some of the shadow work and things like that. I thought he did a good job, and it feels like he's connected with the actors. Obviously, he worked with Woody on Wolf the Planet of the Apes. So, they acted opposite each other, so they have a rapport already. So I kind of feel like that's good. And I think, like you said, he's basically let Tom go crazy again. He's let Tom do his thing, and it works. It works for the character. It works for that split nature, the slightly sort of low-key Eddie and the madcap sort of Venom. It really does sort of work that way. I think he's going to be good. I expect big things from him. I think this is going to be a stepping stone for him to do other things as well. But hopefully, I think people will enjoy his work in this.
Yeah, I like that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Like, there are things in Venom that really worked, and so let's stay with those and kind of rework the things that didn't. Well, moving on and sort of sticking with the theme of the Spider-Verse, the Sony Spider-Man films. This one, of course, also with Disney, which what we're talking about, of course, is Spider-Man No Way Home. Andrew Garfield this week told the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, it was sort of a long comment, but basically he said, and I quote, "I would have gotten a call by now." And, basically saying that he didn't get a call and he's not going to be in the film. However, a couple of days later, he told Access Hollywood, never say never. So I was a little confused by this. My first reaction was, if I'm going to take Alfred Molina at his word that he is in No Way Home, then I have to take Andrew Garfield at his word that he isn't in No Way Home. But I did feel like there might be, especially with saying never say never a day later, I kind of feel like maybe he's being coy about a few things. I think there's also an option that we had heard some rumors that Tobey Maguire was holding out for more money. And if they couldn't sign Tobey Maguire financially, I'm wondering, do you know what I'm saying? Like, as a producer, I don't think there's a reason to bring Andrew Garfield back if you don't get Tobey as well. Like, you kind of needed both Spider-Mans, not just one over the other. So, again, I have no idea. We don't really know. Let me throw it to James. What did you make of Andrew's comments, and what do we make of this?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm fully ready to be wrong about this. We never know exactly what's happening because Marvel draws a huge veil of secrecy, at least as much as they can over these things. But right now, I would think Andrew Garfield would check for his pants to be on fire and for his nose to be about 5 feet long, because I think he might be lying about it just to try and preserve some of the fun and the secrecy. There was that weird leak or that weird report, I think it was a couple of months ago, where somebody had been delivering food to Andrew Garfield in Atlanta. And they were saying, like, oh, yeah, he must surely be in Spider-Man because he's in Atlanta having food delivered to him. Right. Ergo, he's in the Spider-Man movie. I don't know if that really is, evidence. I don't think that would stand up in court necessarily. But I have a feeling, given everything we've been hearing about the multiverse nature of No Way Home with Doctor Strange and everything like that, I think he's either in it and it's only a cameo and they don't really want to try and throw that away too much, or he's in it and he's just not going to say because the Marvel little poison pill that's in his thigh will activate and he'll just keel over. I think he might be. I think they're both in it, but again, I'm fully prepared to be bizarrely wrong about it and for it to just premiere and be like, oh, here's Doc Ock, here's Electro. I still wonder why you would have an Andrew Garfield villain in Jamie Foxx's Electro and not have Andrew Garfield. Likewise, why you would have Doc Ock and not have some reference to Tobey Maguire, even if they put him in on a green screen in, a week or a month or 2 weeks before the movie comes out, just to keep the secret.
That's a really good point. I mean, since we know that Doc Ock is in it, you're right. It doesn't make a lot of sense and Jamie Foxx to have one villain from one of those and not the other. And so we know Jamie's in it. We know Alfred Molina's in it. I agree with you. I tend to think that Andrew's, lying to kind of keep the worst secret in Hollywood kept a little bit longer. But again, I mean, I kind of feel like if I'm going to believe Andrew Molina, I got to believe, him too. Yeah. But I tend to agree with you that and then having this other comment of never say never, sort of backtracking it. I don't know what to make of this, Wendy. What do you think Andrew's doing?
I think I would like to hope that he is being coy about it and kind of being and we've seen many Marvel actors deny that they're attached to a project. Right. And I understand this is technically like Spider-Man still kind of technically more Sony than it is Marvel when it comes to movies. However, I feel that he does want to keep a little bit of that secrecy, not to just be like, no, you can't know, but it's a surprise for the fans. Like I would love nothing more than to walk into the Spider-Man 3 movie. Granted, I already have all those like fan theory of what I think I want to see in this film. I would love to see like the Spider-Verse, and I would love to see, all the Spider-Man showing up. I want to see a Miles Morales. I want to see the Spider-Gwen. Like that's what I would love. Right. But, when he first said like, oh, I didn't get a call. And I was like, well, maybe he didn't. And it would make sense if it was more Tobey Maguire because of Alfred Molina, right? Like that it wouldn't make sense if they dropped in that Doc Ock from that timeline, but then not have Tobey. It just would be kind of weird unless they don't mention it or unless he's traveling through the multiverse, Spider-Verse to get to where it depends on how they do it. But now that he's kind of slightly walked it back and say, well, never say never, maybe I don't know, maybe the deal finalized. Maybe he was just like, maybe I should come out with it. Maybe I should just play with them a little bit. Who cares? Like I'm in it, but like, let's just leave them dangling on a hook because the movie will come out and then, so they'll not know what to expect. That's what I think. But in my heart, I really, really would love to see all 3 Spider-Man in one film.
I would too. Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see, you brought up a good point, Wendy, because I could actually see them bringing the 2 villains and not the 2 Spider-Men, right? Like if we couldn't get Andrew and Tobey's contracts to work out, I think it still makes sense to have, with the multiverse aspect, Alfred Molina and Jamie Foxx kind of come in, and you don't even need their Spider-Mans. Doctor Strange could explain these are Spider-Man villains from another, universe or whatever. So I think is possible. I also get the sense that Andrew Garfield is dying to do this, would love more than anything else to do this. I also get the feeling that Tobey Maguire could care less. So, James, do you sort of get the same? Yeah, I do. I mean, he'll do it for the money, but otherwise, he's basically retired. He doesn't, he produces. He's a family guy, and I think that Spider-Man is in the past for him. Okay. But then again, I think he'll do it for the right price. James, what's your thoughts on Tobey and Andrew?
I think Andrew almost certainly would want to come back just to sort of almost finish his run at it, because it feels like he got the 2 films, but he didn't really ever get to finish his story properly. Mm-hmm. Tobey, he's probably a little bit more distant from it now. It's a few years ago that he did it. It's not like he's really talked about it that much unless people have specifically asked since then. Right. I think he'd do it. I think he'd do it for the fans though, and they've got Sam Raimi doing the Doctor Strange, the new Doctor Strange sequel. So maybe they got Sam Raimi on the phone with Tobey Maguire and went, just do it, just for the fans, just one last hurrah. You have to show up for a couple of days in Atlanta. They'll give you a load of cash. They'll have some nice buns on set or something like that. It'll be good. It'll be good. You can bring the whole family for a little holiday. Just come do it, and we'll wrap this whole thing up. So, again, I'd love for it to happen. I'd love for them both to be in it. I'd love for all these things just for the sheer geeky joy of seeing them interact. The way that Spider-Verse was so much fun, watching the different Spider-Men, women, and pigs interact. But it would be great. I think probably they've got them, but we'll just have to wait and see at this point. I know they're going to be as cagey as possible until they absolutely have to confirm it or don't confirm it, and the movie's out. But yeah, I hope so. I just don't know for sure yet.
I think you
question
make
to you guys. So sorry,
go ahead.
Jamie. Is there anyone else other than the Spider-Men in question that have been confirmed? Like, for example, is Emma Watson? Nope, that's wrong. Emma Stone. Has she been confirmed for anything?
No. There have been
No, I've
rumors
never
of
heard her
Kirsten
at all.
Dunst.
Well,
there have
that
been
would make sense.
some Kirsten Dunst rumors, and I think J.K. Simmons is definitely confirmed to return.
Well, I would hope so.
But but I think it's still questionable whether his character is from the other universe or a new version in this universe, right?
I just wondered if, like, and I know what happened with Gwen Stacy in the previous film, but I wonder if they were gonna go full, like, playing with timeline or the Spider-Verse thing. Like, if she's in it, does that mean, like, if she's confirmed, then we can probably say it's a yes for Andrew Garfield, but.
Right.
Point,
at this point, I don't think we know about that. But James, I think that was a really good point about, like, Sam Raimi. Definitely. I mean, if I was Kevin Feige and Toby was, a question, I would have Sam make that call. So that makes total sense to me. And I think that if they do appear in the film, I think we all can agree that, like, it would be cameos. I can't see these being large. I mean, we were just talking about the Venom movie being packed. I mean, this movie's already packed, right? Like, I don't know if we could fit in any more MCU characters. There's a lot going on in this Spider-Man, so we'll have to wait and see. Well, there was also, moving from Marvel to DC, there was some big news last week. Hollywood Reporter had a great article about the future of this Superman movie that Ta-Nehisi Coates and J.J. Abrams, Coates is writing, J.J. Abrams is producing, and a few really great details came out of this article. The first is that it's confirmed that this will not be a story focusing on Val Zod, as we see here, or President Calvin Ellis, but in fact will be a retelling of the Kal-El story. And in fact, I think they even said Kal-El comes from Krypton to Earth, that story. Warner Brothers is still committed to hiring a black actor to play Superman. And also the directors that they are looking at include Stephen Caple Jr., who did Creed 2, J.D. Dillard, Regina King, Shaka King, so we have two Kings, and even possibly Ryan Coogler or Barry Jenkins. So I like to actually throw out another name to that list if Warner Brothers is listening, John Ridley. I think John Ridley would be great. Oscar-winning writer. He directed a great Jimi Hendrix biopic and has done a lot of television directing and show running. So, and is currently writing a Batman comic and another comic for DC Comics. So I'll throw that name out there as well. But so let me throw it to Wendy. What do you think about doing the Kal-El story again and these directors on this wish list?
Let's go to the directors first. Love the wish list.
Yes.
Love to see a Regina King at the helm. Yep. I just love her so much, and I don't think enough people saw One Night in Miami, or her, her performance in Watchmen on HBO. So, like, I think everybody needs to pay attention to her work and what she is doing, because she's uber talented. With that said, I love the directors list. I think really anybody they pick from that list, they're gonna have a really great director at the helm of this movie. So let's go to the retelling of Kal-El, which I'm kind of thinking, why are we doing this again? Like, how many, like, we're gonna, like, start over with Superman over and over and over. And I get, like, the Snyderverse, they're not going to move forward with that. So it kind of makes sense, I guess, if they had to start over with a new Superman. I guess it wouldn't be Henry Cavill, though that makes me really sad, because to me, he's been so great as Superman. I really, really like him. So I just really wish that they, one, didn't have to retell the Kal-El story, and two, if you're doing a black Superman, I really would have loved for them to introduce another character other than Kal-El. Like, there's so many more Kryptonians, there's so many more stories. Jamie, you already pointed out we have Val Zod, and when I looked at that photo, all I can see is Jonathan Majors as Superman. Like,
yes,
and because I already
that drawing particularly, yes,
yeah, it's like it's like he was born to play the superhero. Just let them put the cape on the man. because in the article by what is it, the Hollywood Reporter, I believe.
Yeah, Hollywood Reporter.
That unfortunately Michael B. Jordan said, I think I'm just going to watch this one because he was my first pick. And I was like, well, okay. But there are so many other actors who are so talented who can do this. Then my mind immediately went to Jonathan Majors. I
actually read Michael B.'s comment as more as like, I'm watching this one. Like, I've got an eye on this project.
Oh, okay.
I'm keeping an eye on how it develops if I'm interested. I took it that way as opposed to I'm just going to watch the movie when it comes out. I took it more as he's got an eye on this project, and if everything works out, he might be interested. James, did you read that comment the same way?
I don't think I did completely. I think he's hedging his bets. Probably. I feel like he's I'm watching it. I'm interested in it, but I feel like he doesn't want to commit. People have been fan casting him as soon as this project was even announced, and even before. People have wanted him as Superman. I don't know if necessarily it's something he's desperate to get into right now. It feels like he's trying to set his own stuff up and, produce and do these things like Without Remorse and things like that. But never say never. But I just don't necessarily see him rushing towards that right now, because I think he feels like he's done his superhero thing with Black Panther, and people love that so much that do you want to try and stack that up against one of the most iconic characters in comic book history, if not the most iconic character?
Yeah, and James, I wanted to get your thoughts on the Kal-El and the directors.
Yeah, the Kal-El of it all. Honestly, I feel like it's Spider-Man all over again. Do we need another origin story of Superman? Like you guys have said, there are so many great characters that you could pick that they've done in the comic books. You could have any of those people and tell their story. It feels like you don't need to tell Kal-El's story again, no matter how interesting it would be reframed through an actor of color, which it would be, but it's, and I thought there was some talk of it not necessarily being tied into the DCEU, like this will exist separately.
Yes, that was another piece of news that came out. That's true as well. That this it'll stand on its own, like the Batman. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not planning. They're using their own version of the multiverse to sort of set up these different versions of characters and everything like that, which means you could still tie them in if you wanted to, but it feels like if you're going to do something that's not then going to tie into sort of DCEU continuity, then you're free to do anything. So why would you do the thing we've seen lots of times before? Do something completely different. Ta-Nehisi Coates is a wonderful writer. He can do anything. So do something.
Yeah. Yes, and I think that I'm going to echo exactly what you both said. I've been saying, we've been talking about this, Wendy, for a month or so since this conversation about New Superman came up, and we've all said the same things. I've said it like, do a Val Zod story, do a Calvin Ellis story. Like, there are other Supermen in the DC universe. We don't need to see Clark Kent's, well, we don't know if he'll be Clark Kent, but at least Kal-El's story again. I still feel that way. I mean, I do understand, and I do see that, part of me not wanting to see the Kal-El story again was I don't want to see the same story again, but it won't be the same. Right? Like, if the Warner Brothers casts a different actor for this, like, it's not going to be the same Superman story that we've always seen. And so, I respect that. I'm open to that. If it changes it and makes it better and makes it interesting and different and something we haven't seen before and something that excites us and gets us excited about Superman again, like, I'm all for that. I just think that, maybe focusing on, it's such a great character, Calvin Ellis, the President by day, Superman by night.
That's cool.
We haven't seen that before. The Val Zod story. Obviously, he's from the House of Zod, so that's a whole different thing. I mean, it could be a cool Elseworlds thing. So, yeah, rehashing the Kal-El story, it concerns me, but in the hands of this writer and knowing who they want to cast, I'm hoping for the absolute best and that it's something everyone loves. And these directors, I just want to comment, are all great. I would go with either King, would be totally fine with me. And as we mentioned, Coogler is also sort of on the list, but with the caveat that he's not going to, because he's got Black Panther.
And he's so busy with 50 million other
things. Barry Jenkins would be interested. I'm not sure if he wants to play in the superhero universe, but he would be an interesting name. The other thing I wanted to mention, and James, I'm glad you mentioned it, that they did say that this would not be part of the new post-Snyderverse DCU continuity, that it would stand on its own the way the Batman will and the way the Joker and any Joker sequels that may or may not happen would be on their own as well. And then the article also mentions, and it was sort of strange the way they said it, but that J.J. Abrams is now in this position where he'll sort of have the most power in the DCU because he's producing the Superman and all the Dark Justice League Dark stuff and Constantine stuff for HBO Max. And then I saw some reports of people, saying, oh, he's going to be the new Kevin Feige. I didn't quite read the article like that, that they're handing the keys to the kingdom to J.J. Abrams. But let me open this up with James. How would you feel if DC did hand the keys to the kingdom to JJ? Or do you think he should just produce the TV shows and this Superman and kind of stay creatively out of the rest?
I think it really depends on whether he has the time to do the Kevin Feige thing. I mean, he is busy with 1,000 other shows he's producing. He's trying to get his own original work back out there, writing and directing and doing that sort of stuff. I mean, he's a proven producer and obviously a filmmaker, but I just think perhaps he doesn't have the time to be able to do it. I think if they're going to hand the keys of the kingdom over to anyone, again, someone who probably doesn't have the time because he's already doing 10 million things, but someone like Greg Berlanti, who produces half the TV shows in America right now. But he's a man who has produced so much of it, but can he's very good at delegating. He sets up shows, he puts showrunners in place. He's very good at finding good people to keep the story going, so he doesn't have to, because there is no way on earth, unless you had one of Harry Potter's time turners, you could literally actively produce every one of the TV shows that man produces right now. Right. So I think someone like that could do it. I mean, obviously Abrams could do it if he wanted to, but he does also have the occasional geek roadblock track record of people haven't loved everything he's done. They didn't love everything he did with Star Wars, Star Trek, everything like that. So you've got those optics as well. Not that the companies necessarily worry about that, because he's also made an awful lot of money for those franchises. But honestly, I think it comes down to schedule. I really don't know if I see J.J. Abrams becoming an overarching figure on the DCEU or any kind of DC universe. I think this multiverse idea is great because it gives him the chance to produce what he would want to produce. I'm not sure he has the time or the energy to do it. But if we're just to throw in a couple of ideas in terms of directors, one person who wasn't mentioned who was actively in development on a DC movie was Ava Duvernay, who was setting up New Gods until that got absolutely whatever. It got removed, put on.
She'd be a great Superman director.
Yeah, I would love to see her take on Superman. I think she'd be amazing. Her with Ta-Nehisi together, I think that would be a killer combo, frankly. I would love to see what she could do with it. But like Wendy said, I'm also huge on Regina King. I loved One Night in Miami. I would absolutely love to see her given this kind of, if she was given the freedom to do it the way she wanted to do it, I would love to see it.
Yeah, Berlanti's an interesting choice to take over. I think Ava would be great to do Superman. James Gunn's another one that I think if he wanted to, and they would maybe hand the keys to him to oversee more stuff. But I back to your point, James, like time. James Gunn has Guardians stuff to finish. So will there be the time? And Wendy, I'll just throw it to you before we move on about J.J. Abrams' involvement in all this. Your feelings?
I think he's found a happy place in being the producer for one film, and if he enjoys it, and he's a big nerd like the rest of us, so sure, he can come back. And I think this gives him the freedom to continue to pursue his passion projects, and then kind of to just switch up the tone a little bit in his work. Let's come over here and play in the superheroes. But I don't think he's going to want to, I'd be surprised if the report came out and he's like the Kevin Feige for the DCEU, because he just finished with all the Star Wars stuff. And that's one behemoth of a franchise that he was very hands-on with. Does he really want to now partake in something like this where you pretty much, I feel like Kevin Feige with the whole Marvel thing, like he eats, sleeps, breathes Marvel, right? You have to. That's the kind of job that you have to be so passionate. And you have to do this every single day. You can't really have too much other stuff going on. And I feel like JJ has such a creative mind that he wants to do this and he wants to do that. And he's done so many TV shows that I think to be tied down to just this one thing. And again, to James's point, time, I don't think he wants to just give that up and just say like, okay, I'm forget everything else. I'm just going to focus on the DCU. Like, that's hard for me to picture.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I'd love to see, I really like JJ as a producer, and I like some of the movies he's directed, right? Some of them didn't work for me. So I think as a producer and maybe as a creative, overseer that other directors and filmmakers and writers can kind of talk to and can kind of help shepherd, like he does with the TV stuff, producing. I think that would be a great role for him. But I certainly hope he doesn't try to direct Superman or anything else like that. If he wants to direct maybe the first episode of the Constantine show or something like that, that would totally be great. Cool. Yeah, right. But I'd like to see him in a more of an overall producing. So a couple more things we want to hit before the end of the show. Loki. Tom Hiddleston himself made a big announcement this week, and they ran an extended trailer for the show with some new scenes we haven't seen yet. But the big announcement is that you will not have to wait till Fridays, or for us geeks, Thursdays at midnight, to see Loki. Disney Plus will now be crashing at midnight on Tuesdays instead of midnight on Thursdays, as Loki will run on Wednesdays instead of Fridays. This is really interesting. I mean, I didn't expect this kind of out of nowhere, and but I like the news. I like the idea of having something to stay up for Tuesday nights instead of Thursday nights, so that when I wake up Wednesday morning, the internet doesn't spoil the episode for me. Wendy, what are your thoughts on Loki moving a couple days early?
It's interesting. I wonder how long Disney had known that they were going to do this, because it was announced it was going to be June 11th, and now it's June 9th, right?
Yep.
And I don't know how I didn't see this coming and like going, wait, this isn't going to work, because then that's two big shows airing with each other in the same day, and you kind of want to sabotage your own views. You don't want to do that. So when the announcement happened, I was like, well, no, duh, they were going to move it to a Wednesday, because the Bad Batch is going to be on Fridays. The Bad Batch is a total of 16 episodes. We're only 2 episodes in, so this is going to run until like August, I think, if I'm trying to do math in my head. Like, I think it ends like first week of August or something like that for the Bad Batch. So it makes sense for Disney Plus not wanting to put 2 big shows on the same day. They're going to spread it out a little bit. So I wonder if they knew this and they planned it. And because Loki deals with time, like the whole TVA thing's playing into it, and he's, like the god of mischief. So of course he's going to come in and drop this fun little announcement like, hey, you thought it was this? Just kidding. 2 days earlier. And I love that, on top of that, then they gave us like an extended look. I'm so excited for Loki. I can't wait. And I can't believe I didn't like think about it thoroughly enough to be like, why would they really do 2 shows on a Friday like that? I mean, they could.
You brought up such a good point, Wendy. I am so disappointed with myself for not realizing that that's why, that's 100% why they moved. Like, of course, they realized they were going to have a back stoppage on Thursday nights, and they needed to figure out how to, and I think that's great, because obviously I'd probably watch both episodes. I'd probably watch Loki at midnight on Thursday, and then when I wake up, hit Star Wars on Friday. But I like the idea of spreading it out a little bit. So now we have, Tuesday nights and Thursday nights, or Wednesdays and Fridays, depending, or, how you look at it, to get excited for this. And I think it's great to sort of spread it out a little bit, especially if you're going to be doing each episode weekly and not like a all at once binging thing. You don't want them all backed up on the same day. So I can't believe I didn't think about that. It's such a good way of thinking. James, what are your thoughts on it, on Loki moving to Wednesdays?
Yeah, that was sort of on my mind too. I think Wendy is absolutely spot on in saying that they don't want to have a traffic jam, literally an internet traffic jam with the Bad Batch. Also, I was thinking, since we're now getting into the point where the big Marvel movies are going to come on Disney Plus at the same day, if Disney's keeping to that idea, do you really want Black Widow dropping the same day as a Loki and having everybody sort of car crash into that, and that one, do you watch one, do you watch the other, do you want to talk about this, do you talk about that, so you kind of keep it. I can't take credit for this line, but I did read on Twitter that someone said, well, Loki has already stolen Odin's voice and Odin's body, so why wouldn't they steal his day? I mean, he's got to do that. He's got to steal Odin's day on Wednesday, so he's going to do it. But yeah, and I like, as well, you were saying that it plays perfectly into the idea of time and the idea of just having mischief as part of it. I'm absolutely 100% on board for Loki. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be fun and different in a way that Falcon and Winter Soldier maybe wasn't. I mean, I liked Falcon and Winter Soldier, don't get me wrong. I liked a lot of what it said and some of what it did, but that felt like a straight down the line kind of Marvel movie with some themes on it, whereas WandaVision was very different. I think Loki has potential to be a Wes Anderson-y type comedy or a Terry Gilliam-esque type comedy of different things, different designs, different time zones, different characters and ideas. I can't wait for it. I really can't wait for it. I'm really thrilled to see Loki get his own show, essentially. So Loki's not dead. He's alive.
Yeah. And this is like classic Loki. That's what people forget. This is classic OG Avengers rule the world Loki.
Yeah.
So I think it's gonna be super fun. And that's a good point, James. I liked Falcon and the Winter Soldier a lot, but it's a heavy show. It's a heavy show, and there's a lot of fun in it, but there's a lot of heaviness going on. And I think you mentioned Wes Anderson type film. We've got Owen Wilson, one of his greatest collaborators in the movie or in the TV series Loki. And I think getting to see Hiddleston playing, that character at sort of his height of, evilness. And I think this whole time thing is going to be really cool. I think it's going to open up a whole new, kind of avenue for different things past Loki even to use with these time cops. So I'm looking forward to it as well. Well, we got about 10, 12 minutes left here, and we're going to shoot right through with 2 reviews. We all got to see last week on Tuesday, on Star Wars Day, May the 4th be with you, was the premiere of Star Wars The Bad Batch, which of course is a spin-off of the final season of the Clone Wars. And the first episode premiered Tuesday. We had one more episode premiere on Friday. And of course, we got to see the big bad in this one. We all know that guy. So let me just start with Wendy. What were your thoughts? How did you feel about this show? Did you love it? Are you hoping for more? Like, what were your feelings?
For this episode specifically, I felt the pacing was definitely a little bit slower, especially on a shorter episode. But I feel like with a show like The Bad Batch, we need it. We can't just come out of the gate and they kind of already gave us that in the first episode with being able to see, first of all, Order 66 being executed from their point of view, seeing Caleb, which was really cool. I was not expecting that. But I feel like the second episode was, you could call it filler, I guess, but I felt like it was a nice setup for now that they've just become deserters and they've taken Omega with them. Now what do they do? How do they function? Minus one team member. So there's a lot of things at play of this is something they're really not used to, and of course learning how to call forth their nurturing side with Omega, as we can see. So I actually love this episode because we had a lot of heart in it. We got to see a little cameo from previous Clone Wars season 2. I want to say was when the last time we saw Cut and Sue. So that was a nice surprise. And I think it's a nice setup for what is to come, because I think from here on out, it's going to ramp up. And it's going to be really crazy because, Crosshair is coming after them, after this point. So they needed to do this, and it gave Cut kind of a nice, I think it's in the terms of setup, a nice introduction of maybe who we think we'll see in this season of The Bad Batch. Not only we saw Cut and Soup, but we have seen Caleb, and Rex was mentioned. They literally missed Rex by a day. So then it gives me hope that maybe we'll see Rex, maybe we'll see an Ahsoka. I believe Matt Lanter is credited in the film, so maybe we'll see a little Anakin flashback. Maybe a little bit of pre-Vader deal because of Order 66. So I think there's a lot of possibility with the show, and I'm liking it so much. And I just think this one, you just need to like have your patience and let the Bad Batch kind of come in on their own and get their origin story right before we can ramp up for action.
Yeah, before we go to James, I just want to break down something that you said, Wendy, for the audience. So there's a scene that features Caleb from Rebels, and it's sort of like a prequel scene to Rebels. So I know like a lot of fans were sort of excited to get to see this moment that had been talked about in this other series, and now we finally got to see it. And I thought that was great. Yeah, the show, it reminds me, and this may date me a little bit, but it's like the A-Team, right? It's like this misfit of guys. Each one has their own like kind of special skill or like superpower, if you will, and they kind of have to come together. And then they sort of adopt, for lack of a better word, this young girl who may have some secrets of her own, Omega. And so I think that's an interesting relationship that they've set up for this season between the characters of the team and Omega. But James, what were your thoughts on the first 2 episodes?
Well, I was coming to it as an animated Star Wars noob for the most part. I've seen little bits of Clone Wars, I've seen little bits of Rebels, but I hadn't really followed them, more for lack of time than anything else. Just hadn't had the chance to get into them. So for me, I was approaching it. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the movies and lots of other Star Wars TV, but I was coming to it from a fairly a fresh perspective, I guess. And I felt like it did actually sort of lead me into it quite nicely. I felt like I got a handle on who these guys are and, how they fit into the main story, how they fit into Clone Wars, how Clone Wars affects the story, how little things are, and then how it's going to feed into Rebels and everything like that. So yeah, I was impressed actually. I think it really keeps the tone, I think, of what I've seen of previous sort of Clone Wars and Rebel stuff. And I like them. I feel like they're characters that I'm more than willing to follow across various adventures, even if I do worry about the care concern for a small child, admittedly one that might have powers of her own and might have abilities, but take her into war zones and take her on the run from the Empire. Yeah, I'd have to worry about that sort of parenting decision. But yeah, I think she'll be fine. They've all got special skills. They can all do really powerful things. Oh, yeah. So she'll be fine. But
yeah,
I enjoyed it.
I'm sort of where you are. I'm like kind of like between the two of you because I've seen a lot of the Star Wars animated stuff, but I haven't seen every episode. So I was like you, James, a little bit like coming into it fresh. But obviously I knew what Order 66 was. I knew who Captain Rex was. Like I know some of these characters, and so I want to sort of let people know out there that if they love the Star Wars movies, but haven't seen every animated series, like that's okay. You can kind of come into this series. It's a little bit fresh. What Star Wars is. Who Darth Vader is. What's going on. Like you'll pick it up and it'll be a real fun series. We've got a few minutes left. We're gonna try to jam in one more review. This is a bad one. All right, Jupiter's Legacy, which is based on the great Mark Millar, who wrote Wanted comic book, and also is probably best known for writing Old Man Logan and Civil War, which Captain America's Civil War were based on. He has a comic called Jupiter's Legacy, which premiered this weekend, Friday on Netflix. It's 8 episodes. They're calling this Volume 1. Josh Duhamel and Leslie Bibb star. So I will just say really quick, and then I'll throw it to you guys. I watched all 8 episodes. I was really into it. It's kind of like The Boys, just without sort of the human characters. And for me, just focusing on the superheroes was great. And I was really into it. And without spoiling it for anyone out there, I got to the finale and I hate it. I hate the show. I can't believe that they caught me for the first 7 episodes. Like I stayed up till 3 a.m. on Friday.
Oh, no,
yeah. I was so into it. And then the end, it's just, without giving it away, I'll just say it's completely unsatisfying. It doesn't answer any of the questions it asks. It asks about 5 more questions that it doesn't answer. If they knew, and I got to be honest, Teen Titans, the Titans series that's now on HBO Max, that had been on DC, their website, whatever that was called, that's defunct now, DC Universe. That was my problem with their first season, because the first season really ends with the first episode of season 2. And I kind of feel like that's what they're doing with this, is that either they, and I think we know that they didn't shoot 2 seasons at once, so they're probably waiting for a green light for the second one. But just from the fact that they called this volume 1 and not season 1, it makes me think they're pretty confident they're going to come back and do more. But what if they don't? And now, like, I'll never get these answers. And I hate that. I hate that with TV shows. Like, you have to plan for your show not getting picked up. So I have to say, I really love this series. And then it totally just dropped the ball for me. James, you watched it. Let's what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, to your point first, before I even get into my thoughts, I think given that Netflix has struck this gigantic deal with Mark Millar to basically take most of Millar World and turn half of his comic book titles into movies or TV shows or anything like that, I have a feeling that we should be confident there will be a volume 2, whatever it is, to the continuation. I think we will get the rest of the story, or the rest of this half of the season, or whatever it's going to be. As to the show itself, I really had some issues with it. I felt like it was shooting for a Watchmen style look at the generational difference between superheroes past and present, parents and children, dysfunctional family stuff, all of that kind of thing. But I just don't think it tackled them in a way that was really satisfying compared to, say, Watchmen, or even something like The Boys, which has that goes sort of all out for the real sort of mad. It's not trying to be The Boys. It's not trying to be that mad, crazy, comedic, swearing, violent stuff. But I just worry about it. And I think it does itself a disservice. I've seen this in a lot of reviews, and I agree. I think it does itself a disservice by having the actors like Josh Duhamel and Leslie Bibb and Ben Daniels try to play the characters at both ends of the age spectrum. Because honestly, and I said this in my Substack review, I felt like Josh Duhamel looks like he's cosplaying as Old Father Time when he's got the big long stringy wig and the beard and everything like that. I think they maybe could have gone with, had them play them as young, or had younger versions played in the 1920s and then have different people play it now. That probably would have been a better idea if you can find the right kind of face matches and the right kind of basic idea for it. Also, I feel like the young characters, because there's such a focus on the build-up of the 1920s narrative of how the older characters got their powers and then how they're dealing with the world that it is now, the younger characters barely have a chance to register. I just don't feel like we got a handle on them. Obviously, Volume 2 could probably do more with that, but there were long periods where the kid Paragon, he's the son of the Utopian, the Josh Duhamel character, I feel like he disappeared for 2 or 3 episodes, and honestly, I didn't really miss him. And I just feel like it's a good shot. It aims at interesting ideas. I just think the execution is wanting. I just don't think it pulls it off. I wasn't convinced through most of it. And like you said, the ending leaves all these things dangling, and I don't feel like it's a really satisfying ending to a season, even though I know it's probably just half the season. Yeah, I just don't think it worked.
Yeah, agreed. The hair and makeup really left something to be desired, and they didn't get to spend enough time with the younger generation. I agree with that. Wendy, I know you saw the first 2 episodes. Real quick, what were your thoughts? And after hearing me and James talk about the end, do you even want to watch the other 6 episodes?
Well, now I feel like I have to. I feel now I want to find out. I will say I'm kind of like you when I was watching it over the weekend. I was like, okay, one more episode. Okay, one more episode. But with time restraints and stuff, I was only through to 2. But I like the story and I like the idea behind it. I like this kind of generation gap between the superheroes and their kids, and if they want to have this power, this responsibility, right? So I find that the whole topic really, really interesting. And of course, each individual kid is going to say either they want to or not. And then you add in this like code that, the utopian is like really want to strictly enforce. And I was like, you want to catch up with the time a little bit because it's kind of a little different, because I saw what happened with Black Star. So I was like, well, okay, I kind of can see where the conflict is. I do feel that as far as execution goes, for the looks, I felt like tonally, like the superhero fight looked like very bright, poppy, a little CW, not in a bad way, right? But then other scenes felt really darker and gritty. And I was like, are we like, it just didn't match overall for me. and it felt like there's too many people that had too many inputs, and they try to make everybody happy, but then it didn't look cohesive to me. And they are spending a lot of time with Josh's character, Utopian, and I like the jump back and forth between the two. But I'll watch the remaining, and then I'll report back to see how I feel. Right now, I'm invested because I like the story. I think it's different. I think it's interesting. But I will also mention that I did notice some of your stereotypical like superhero tropes, like the great power comes with great responsibility. The little mailbox shot of Samson, I was like, oh, could that have said Kent? Don't love Josh Duhamel's hair as older Utopian. Also of note, and I know we're running a little short on time, but did his coloring of his suit, the Utopian suit, not remind you of Omni-Man?
Oh, 100%.
I was like, whoa, it's Omni-Man right here. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of a big swing and a miss with that show. But that is all the time we have. We got through all our topics. Thank you for tuning in. And I want to remind everyone that we are just one of the shows. The Hollywood Critics Association has been launching this year. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button, like this video, and tune into Pop Council every Monday at 11 a.m. We also have Horrifically Horrifying on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. with Heather Wixon and Kevin Taft. What to Stream on Thursdays at 11 a.m. hosted by Morgan Rojas, and What's Trending in Hollywood on Fridays at 11 a.m. with Scott Menzel. Wendy, it was a great show. Let everyone know where they can find you and follow you.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Wendy Lee Szany, just my name. You can find me here on YouTube at the Movie Couple channel. And if you're into D&D or Pathfinder 2, I'm about to go and play in a charity game for Jasper's Game Week. All proceeds goes towards suicide prevention. And just follow my social media and you'll find the links for that there.
Awesome. And James, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. You were great, man. This is awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And if anyone wants to find me, they can find me at Jam White on Twitter, empireonline.com, and then substack.com/JamesWhite, I think it is. Yeah, it's very awkward. But yeah, that's where you can basically find me writing.
Awesome. And you can find me on Instagram or Twitter at Philbrick and Facebook at my name. We want to thank you all for watching, and we'll see you right back here next week for Pop Council Podcast. Until then, stay nerdy.
Okay, bye.